Hello, hello, hello. I am back once again. In the car. And it's a little foggy. No, it's cloudy. I definitely go with cloudy. So you won't see the sun in the background like last time. Now with that said, let's go back on to topic. Let's see, what was I talking about last time? It's been like a week since I last recorded, so I get a little fuzzy. But I remember talking about the morals of children and the concept of having a carbon brick to replace compostable trash. Pretty sure that was the gist of it. I wonder what I should go to first. I'll jump back into the idea with the children. Yeah. So, to quick recap, if I recall properly, it would be that, by and large, we as a society in America do not want our schools to teach children values as long as they pertain to either political or religious values. With that in mind, we still expect our schools to teach our children other ethical and social values such as respect and friendship and compassion, while leaving out these other aspects of one's livelihood. Sorry, someone just did a U-turn in almost the middle of the road. I guess it's fine since they were able to go through a part of a driveway, but it's still a little annoying because they could easily tell that I was here. And there's some people doing utility work, so I'm gonna have to stop again. Oh well. Anyway, continuing. I suppose it's true that children do kind of pick up on those kinds of niche elements, such as respect, while in school. When you put them in front of a teacher and inside of a classroom, but I'm not really sure if that really counts as really teaching them all the moral values necessary, since you can teach a lot more just by teaching a kid the concepts of the values of religion. Like, I'm a Catholic, so I will only usually relate to Christian-like ideals, so please keep that in mind anytime I actually talk about religion. Continuing, I recognize that almost every single religion in the world holds special values that they believe every human being that follows said religion should comply with. In the concept of Catholicism, that should pertain directly to, okay, the truck that turned around is now parking on the left side of the road, even though that we were driving on the right side. I don't know, I'm just gonna try to not think about it. Oh, and if you can't see my hands, it's just because of the orientation of the camera, and I don't have my hands like up here. But they are on the wheel. Continuing. The Catholicism concept of the 7 virtues versus the 7 sins. If you aren't aware, let's see if I can name them off the top of my head. The 7 sins are definitely a lot more popular, or at least a lot more well known. Let's see. There's sloth, pride, wrath, greed, envy, gluttony, and lust. And then conversely, there are the 7 virtues, which is charity, humility, chastity, selfless, I don't remember the others. Anyway, there's 7 virtues, and if you're to sum up the 7 good things a human can do, that's basically what the 7 virtues are. I know that's a really vague way of putting it, but it's just what I'm going to go with right now until I can actually remember what the virtues are. Oh, and one of the virtues is patience. With all of that said, Catholicism really tries to teach those things. Oh, another virtue is temperance. And so the the seven virtues really try to just teach those kinds of... Catholicism tries to teach those kinds of values to a person. Now, mind you, that's on top of the concept of God and heaven and the fact that, or the idea that Jesus is our Savior. That's all good and well and all, but to me, religion, by its fundamental nature, is designed to teach a human, a person, the difference between good and bad, in a very, I want to say superficial, but I know that's the wrong word, but like a fundamental way. Like, if you were to ever meet another Catholic, the desire of a religion is supposed to be that if you two are of the same religion, you two will hold the same values, and as such, you can expect them to uphold the same values. And that is, if you're a Catholic and you practice the seven virtues and you hold disdain and scorn for the seven sins, then the underlying idea is that you can go to any other Catholic, excuse me, and they will, as long as they're a good Catholic, they'll do the same. They'll uphold the seven virtues and scorn and hold disdain for the seven sins. With that in mind, I'm gonna leave all the God stuff out of the picture for right now, because I know like Islam also holds these same kind of values about upholding dignity and whatnot. Buddhism really holds a lot more on the world of patience, and I don't really know the other religions all too well, but I believe that they do the same. They uphold certain moral values that their founder pretty much set in stone. More or less. I mean, every religion's changed over time. Continuing. The same kind of concept can be seen within political parties. For here in America, that would be Republican and Democrats by and large. You can go farther than that, but I'm just going to stick with these two for now since they are the most well known. Republicans uphold, as you can expect, conservative social and economic values, and Democrats hold the opposite of liberal social values and economic policies. That is heavy government interference in the economic system and governmental interference on the on one's personal social life. And so, if you grow up in a household that is leaning in one direction of those, you can expect the child, generally, to grow up with the same kind of values. It should be noted that, generally, young people are liberals by nature, and conversely, older folks are conservative by nature. I'm sure it's something about how when you're young, you're willing to try new things and branch out. You're much more compassionate and you aren't jaded by life yet. Whereas when you're older, you have had to deal with life and you understand that people just aren't as trustworthy as they might seem on the surface. And I don't know, being my age, 19, I am clearly biased towards being liberal. But I grew up in a household that was mostly conservative, so it's very easy to say I hold conservative economic views and liberal social policy ideals. That is, the government should focus on the things the government is good at, such as infrastructure, military, defense, and the general upkeep of the nation. And then, in terms of liberal social policies, like pro-choice, up to a degree. Free religion, against forms of discrimination and prejudice, and so on. That's my personal opinion. And I'm really just I'm not trying to push that onto you, the viewer, but rather I'm just trying to point out the fact that it's absolutely possible to mix the two. With that in mind, those were things that were instilled in me by my parents just by the way of, I guess, the best way to put it would just be, I don't usually drive through snow, sorry I'm going off topic, but I'm not driving through snow, but around snow, and it's never something I've really had to do since I lived in like a valley, so we didn't ever get snow, and it kind of feels weird to have to like see it on a daily basis. Anyway, just by growing up in my household, I acquired those values, and being my age and going to school where everyone else held like liberal social values, I acquired them that way, just by way of interaction and camaraderie. It's very easy to expect that every child would grow up that way. They'll acquire the same kind of values as their parents and the same kind of values that they see in school. The only difference is we, as a nation, don't really want our teachers to actually teach these values. We don't want them to really specify the difference and that it's okay to hold different values. They don't want actual communication between the two groups. It's almost as if there's a disdain to talk about it inside of school. In some cases, there's a large disdain to talking about it even in the home, particularly if you hold different values than your peers. And I'm using peers in this case to both associate parents, siblings, as well as your fellows at school. In the same vein, we hold an even greater disdain of talking about financials in the home. By and large, parents tend to avoid talking about their finances in front of their children, as well as in public. And being a child, you very quickly pick up the concept that you aren't supposed to talk about your financials, that it's incredibly bad and it's a bad thing to even think about. And I believe that has a very bad ripple effect. And it mostly has gotten us to a nation where we are today that is really heavily in debt. I'm not sure if you're aware, but on average, the typical American citizen has about $400 in savings. $400. That's not enough to cover your car breaking down and you missing a paycheck. Real bad. Real bad. It really makes you wonder, like, wow. For all of the people who just went through the government shutdown and didn't get a single paycheck, probably half of them immediately had to go on to unemployment since they were already in debt and they had multiple payments to make. That sucks. And I believe a lot of that comes from the concept that we aren't supposed to talk about our financials in public. We aren't supposed to, like, actually think about them. I believe that I'm a bit of a special case in this instance because my father was is a financial planner, so we talked about finances a lot, especially growing up because that was his job. To get people to talk about finances and how to think about the future. Here in America, we typically use the language of English, sometimes Spanish and on such. That is Romance languages, derived from Roman and Greek. Well, typically Latin, mainly. And so I learned one time from a TED Talk that there are two different really kinds of languages that that can be derived or thought of. One is featured and the other is unfeatured. And the basic definition of a featured language is that it separates time, such that the past is the past, the present is the present, and the future is the future. And in an unfeatured language, that isn't so much the case, since you can quickly blur the lines between future, present, and past tense very easily. And so the easiest way to think about it is the difference of you reading an entire book at a time as opposed to reading a single chapter at a time of the book. Of a book, I mean. Excuse me again. If you're not sure what I'm trying to get at with my analogy, if you imagine the book as time itself, like the entire book, and a chapter as in one segment of that time, if you are looking through the entire book at one time, it means you're taking the entire consideration of time into account. That is, you're thinking about the past, present, and future all at once. Or at the very least, you're considering them. Whereas, if you're with a featured language, you're probably looking at only a single chapter. And you're thinking of the other chapters as, well, other chapters. Different parts that don't have any major importance now. That is, the chapter that you're reading now is the present, and it's the only really thing that matters because it's the only thing you see. Obviously, there was a past, and you are aware of that, but it's different. In a future language, you recognize that it's a completely different subject, and that there is no way that you can blur the two together. The past was the past, and it's something that you should just get over. And the same case with the future. And in this case, it would be every chapter following the present chapter. Whereas going back to a non-featured language, that is not the case. You are considering the future as something that is building upon this current chapter, just as much the current chapter built upon the past. Obviously, you can quickly think about these different things in English, and that's true, but it's different. Each segment of that book is a different part in English. English is a featured language. We very quickly piece apart time and one's life and the state of being such that they're all in different states. By and large, one does not affect the other. Whereas in a non-featured language such as Chinese, you very quickly blur those lines together and you can easily consider the whole. And it's a very big difference between thinking of a single moment as opposed to excuse me. It's very easily considered like looking at the difference between a single moment in time as opposed to how this one moment will be affecting the future. Within that same TED Talk, the speaker used there is a person backing up in the middle of the street. Oh, they're backing up into a parking space. And so, in Chinese, if I understand it correctly from the TED speaker, it would not be improper to say, "It will have rained tomorrow." In English, that sounds incredibly wrong, because it kind of is. But in Chinese, just like I was saying, "It will have rained." That is 3 different tenses. No. 2 tenses. Future and past being thrown together. It will being the future, and have rained being the past. I'm parked now, by the way. And so if you were to consider like adopting that same way of thinking to our current lifestyle here in America. Thinking about it as, it will have rained tomorrow. You'd be able to understand the value of savings and the avoidance of debt. And I'll try to touch on that more next time, but yeah, I really go off topic. Let's see, I started with children, then to religion, then to political parties, and now to time and time languages and whatnot. I don't know. Think about it. I've got to go to class. Bye-bye.